1916 Tula. This is commonly what is referred to as a Balkan rifle. Not because it was made in the Balkans, but because it spent most of its service life in that part of the world. Quite a lot of these around, and a lot of times on the internet forums you'll hear them called Balkan rifles and so on and so forth, and I'll explain why. Now we all know that Serbia and Austro-Hungary went to war in 1914 over our little assassination business. Ended up turning into the First World War. Well, Serbia had a big friend called Russia. And Russia, being a kind of friend they were, sent a whole bunch of rifles to aid Serbia against Austria-Hungary. And in the ensuing fight, everybody got involved, and even the Bulgarians came in on the side of Austria-Hungary and attacked Serbia, and a lot of these rifles ended up scattered to the four winds. And at the same time, the Russians themselves also attacked Austro-Hungary, and Germany lost a shitload of rifles, and those rifles also ended up in the mix. And they ended up staying in that part of the world through the World War II years and the post-war years, even used by the communists. Now, it was pretty common for them to scrub these, the markings, the Tsar's markings, as you can see here. This one looks to have some defacement there, but it's so light, I'm thinking it's probably damage or just plain wear, because they weren't struck very hard in the first place. Because it does not appear to be fully scrubbed, or even scrubbed a lot. You can see if I can get close. But if you notice back here, they didn't scrub the receiver at all. So I'm thinking they didn't scrub this one. One quick way to tell one of these rifles very easily, if you search for them, you will find on them a number of tiny markings. There's one right there in the finger groove, you can see it right there. That is a Bulgarian pine cone stamp, indicating at one time this rifle was the property of the Bulgarian state. And that's their mark on there. You'll find them in the finger groove sometimes. You might find them on the buttstock. Anywhere on the buttstock, really, you can see them. Very tiny, very easy to miss, but once you see it, you know right away that you are definitely dealing with a rifle from that time, that period, and that place. This was probably a rifle that Bulgaria captured from the Russians, or received from Austro-Hungary, or they captured from the Serbians. This is not a Serbian-marked weapon, but that does not necessarily mean Serbia was not using it. And you can see it's in pretty good shape for it. Sometimes these rifles can be a little rough. They can be banged up and pretty well shot out. You see, this one's not too bad. It's got the typical Balkan oil finish. They didn't like to use shellac like the Russians did when they refinished these things. They used the oil finishes they used in everything else. Blade sight, of course, expected. This is an 1891 rifle. They didn't alter the rifle really any other way. And this is odd here, as you notice. It has a cleaning rod. Not many of the Balkan rifles do. They also tend not to be matching very often. This one is matching on the magazine and the barrel, but the bolt does not match. However, oddly enough, the bolt does have 3 different serial numbers on it, showing this rifle's been around a while. You see one right there lined out, right there, and again, on the back, none of them match each other. On the cocking piece there, see the serial number there? Yeah. Surprisingly good bore. This is not counterbored. Many of them tend to be counterbored. This one is not. Still a very good shooter. You know, it passes headspace with no difficulty at all. It was, I guess, pretty well taken care of by whoever was using it. See, the butt plate is still in pretty good shape. That number, by the way, also matches. We got a stamp there, which could be the remains of an Austrian W, or it could be a G, or not really sure. See the stamp there, and non-matching serial number on the back there. At least not matching to the barrel receiver. You see a neat little stock repair there. Someone took the time to do it right, filled it in nicely. Typical Russian markings of the period from Tula Arsenal. These rifles have a lot of history packed into them, and they are the second most common one encountered, really. I mean, you have the fins, which are all over the place, typified by the SA stamp that would be right there. And you have the Balkan rifles. You have some of the American rifles that never went over in the first place that turn up from time to time. And you have the ones from the Spanish Civil War that usually say made in the USSR or made in URRS on them. This is not one of those. A lot of these came in from Romania in the early post-communist period. Back in the early to mid 1990s, these were among the first of these types of weapons we were seeing, other than the Finn ones. The Romanians were dumping all of their old rifles, and they had themselves been the dumping ground of Europe for many cast-off or surplus rifles of this type, as they were unable to produce enough themselves to satisfy their own needs. So a lot of these rifles were sent by Bulgaria and Yugoslavia and other countries to Romania, and then Romania sold them here. Pretty decent trigger on it too. Really no complaints about this one. Some of the other ones, like I said, they could be pretty rough, but this one's a pretty good example of the type. You see it's got even the handguards nicely matched. A few little minor starting to crack there a bit, but nothing major there. Now just to look at a typical Balkan rifle. Model 1891 Mosin nagant. Veteran of the Great War and probably one hell of a lot of violence. 1916 was a very, very busy year for the Great War. A lot of stuff was going on the Western Front with the Serbians, the Russians, the Bulgarians, Austria-Hungarians. And there you go. The Balkan rifle.